Hello, I'm Dalton Tanonaka, and welcome to a special edition of Hot Indonesia, tracking the threat of the coronavirus. Now, in this program, we will trace our coverage and discussions of the global pandemic that's killed more than 500,000 people to date around the world. We first addressed the problem in our January 31st show. Hot topic number one, viral virus. It's believed to have originated in a live animal market in the central Chinese city of Wuhan. And since December, nearly 10,000 people around the world have been confirmed with the coronavirus. More than 200 people have died, all in China. Major events were canceled, non-essential travel banned, Wuhan and other Chinese cities virtually locked down. Some airports, including here in Indonesia, have banned flights to and from Wuhan. Heat scanners, the body heat scanners have been pulled out from storage. People are scared.
Yeah, and it happens during the busiest time of the year for Chinese because of the Chinese New Year. And if I'm not mistaken, almost 250 million people plus would travel around this period of time between the Chinese New Year and the 2 weeks holiday following the Chinese New Year. So if you look at the pictures coming up from Wuhan and the Hubei province, it's very scary because you're locking basically up about 60 million people. Yeah. Imagine you lock down a school. It's quite tough. Now it's locking up an entire province. So
no public transportation.
Right.
Ongoing.
So it's major event, and I think our prayers, our thoughts are with the people in Hubei province, and I think this is something that we need to make sure that the public is well aware of what's going on. And this is where I guess social media can play a big part to inform basically how the precautionary steps to be taken for travelers and for people who are suspected to be infected by the coronavirus.
Now, hopefully this is correct because there is a matter of transparency and trust.
Right.
Whether the Indonesian government is really giving the real information.
Yeah, no cases here so far.
Yes, because
confirmed.
you see from China and then it jumps over Indonesia to Australia. It's already in Europe and in Japan and other parts of Asia.
But it has to travel from person to person, so you have to have visited that area, and it's a human-to-human transmission.
Like Sandy said, we have so many tourists from
China
coming to Indonesia.
Wuhan is very connected to Indonesia in so many ways because travelers, tourists, also business people. And we need to really make sure, and this is typical Indonesia, you don't really have to debate and be divided on the issues whether we should close our borders and not accept the Chinese tourists.
But don't forget, Sandy, in 2005 we had the avian flu.
The SARS before that.
And before that. But we had a very strong minister of health at that time who fought for Indonesia, who fought against the WHO, who was like covering up where the samples of the viruses were taken. So Ibu Siti Fadila Supari at that time became a phenomenon. And she even made a book. She wrote a book, the world has to change. It's time for the world to change.
Yeah, but Indonesia still had the largest number of deaths from bird flu at that time, 130.
But we managed to make a lot of changes with global impact in terms of transparency.
Okay, have we learned from that? Are we doing enough right now?
Hopefully, knowing that in Indonesia so far, there has not been any confirmed cases.
We've banned flights to and from Wuhan. That's one step.
That's right.
Hopefully, it's going to remain that way. Now it depends on Dr. Terawan. Would he be able to do his job properly? But what I believe is that Indonesia and the Asian communities should make this, like the European Union, they have this organization in terms of how to deal with such issues. ASEAN should have that. Indonesia should be the pioneer and be
You know,
a leader.
I
also
think
in this.
you can have the government saying this and bodies doing what. It comes down to individual practice too. We can help ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the audience and us
your
wash your hands.
Yes.
Cover when you're
and
coughing.
even masks not necessarily are the best protection, but it's one protection.
Yeah.
It's more important for me, someone who's sick, to wear a mask than me trying to prevent getting it. You know what I mean? If you're coughing, someone's coughing, cover up or cover your mouth. And
Yeah, it can go through your eyes though.
that's a problem.
They say now,
So the symptoms, in case people have questions, you have
Fever.
coughing, fever,
a sore throat,
dry
difficulty-
sore throat. It's a
difficulty in
flu.
breathing.
It's a flu virus,
Right.
and it's hard to tell what it is. But if you have a question, go check.
Yeah,
Don't
and-
hide it.
And not just temperature screening, but making sure, because we have not seen a virus as deadly as this one. So we need to really make sure that we take all precautions. We need to be ready.
But San, I don't want people to get overly cautious, because it's people have recovered from this. People
Right.
who have gotten sick have gotten better. I don't think we should overemphasize or
No,
over.
I agree with you.
Let's not panic too much.
I agree, but we also, we need to make sure that this is top of the mind of especially travelers, to make sure that they understand what are the standard operating procedures, and making sure that they could mitigate the
Better
risk.
to be safe than sorry.
Yeah,
No,
better
I
to be
agree.
safe
To
than
err
sorry.
on the side of caution.
It's curable, and when you're dealing with viruses, it goes back to your immune system.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the best precaution.
That's why
steps
older
that you
people
say,
and people who are sick already are
Yeah.
more susceptible to this.
So people who live under the poverty line,
Right.
they're more susceptible.
So one last point, I think the health authorities, pretty much like what we experienced in 2005, set up a task force to basically take the lead and making sure public is
Have we done that yet?
I think we're in the
Yes.
process,
Yes. Okay.
and we need to push and help them by spreading the information so that everybody is well covered.
Transparency, not
Yeah.
only in Indonesia,
Public
but
information,
globally.
yeah.
Globally.
Okay.
So.
Coming up next, 1 month later, did Indonesia really not have any cases of COVID-19? You're watching a special edition of Hot Indonesia from Jakarta, tracking the threat of the coronavirus. Now, after our initial discussion in January, a month later, we looked at the claims of a government that there were no cases of COVID-19 as of late February. Here's hot topic number 2, corona reality. The virus that originated in Wuhan, China has now killed nearly 2,000 people, with more than 70,000 infected from Australia to America. But the world's 4th biggest country has not reported a confirmed case of COVID-19, and that has experts wondering, what is Indonesia doing right now? Cynics are saying that there must be cases of the coronavirus here, given our proximity and ties to China. Nearly 30 countries have it. What do we say?
Yeah, because we depend on Chinese tourists, which cover about 25% almost.
And
of
flights
the
are blocked right now, but
But before that,
so you don't believe it, Sandrina?
Well, I want to believe that Indonesia is free from corona, but I have doubts. No matter what we have, well, all the confirmed cases related to Indonesian citizens are abroad. One in Singapore and one from the cruise.
Three on the cruise. Yeah.
Three confirmed from the cruise that's in Yokohama in
yeah.
Japan. But all the suspected cases in Indonesia have been declared as negative. Even the one that came back from Bali to China, then he was declared positive with the virus. The Indonesian government, the health ministry said, must have not contracted the virus from Bali.
The health minister had a news conference, and he said the main reason was, did you read that? Prayers.
Prayers.
Yeah, prayers were the reason we don't.
Not masks.
I mean, everybody has faith, but the medical experts are saying two possible reasons. One is the climate is warm and the virus cannot survive in this hotter climate. And second, we cook our foods, we overcook our foods here. We fry the heck out of them so they don't survive. Other countries eat sashimi and other things, so they may get it like that. Sandy, you just came back from Japan, and how was the screening when you came back? Were you satisfied with what?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very grateful that so far we have not yet a confirmed case. And I feel sorry for the minister who's now lambasted by some communities.
If he was a religious minister, that's one thing. But he was the health minister.
But he was the health minister. So, but I came with a flight that's supposed to land at 5 a.m. in the morning, but it came early at around 4 a.m. So we were expecting a relaxed emergency procedures dealing with this virus, but no. They were very, very meticulous. They asked us to fill up a form.
They're in Japan or here?
In Indonesia.
Returning from Japan.
Yeah,
Did they have heat detectors?
They have heat detectors. They have people, they make sure that there's a line so people cannot go and not being seen. So I guess they ushered all the passengers, and they make sure that we've gone. We go through the heat detector.
See, in 1 week's time it changed, because I told you, remember last week, I went to Japan a week before, and there was nothing.
No, they're not very serious. I think the government now
they stepped up to increase the standard, right?
The standard, but also I think through social media, through the news coverage, I think more people now know the risk of this outbreak. So I guess I'm not an expert. The climate may be helping, or maybe the way that we cook our food, but we just need to make sure that we're not panicking. We make sure the outreach to inform everybody is being done, and continue to monitor the progress.
Yeah, and what is happening right now in China is actually an increase lately, like 15,000 new cases, the highest increase in one day, because they changed the way of screening or detecting. The WHO also said that the main problem is there is no early detection system for this particular virus. They're still trying to find out. So in China, aside from having the blood test being taken, done in central labs, which takes time, now they use CT scans, and they try to scan the lungs. With this additional type of screening, then the number just jumped really high.
Okay, well, let's bring it back to Indonesia.
Yeah,
and
in terms of Indonesia,
and like your restaurants say, do you require your workers to wear masks, and what precautions do you take?
in the kitchen, of course, mask and hair covers is a hygiene standard.
That's normal,
yes.
yeah. Okay, but for
Hygiene
this coronavirus, did you take extra things?
No, cleanliness in terms of hygiene is standard. Yeah. So cleanliness of the hands, they have to groom themselves well. But if you comply to those standards, then it should be okay in terms of hygiene. But going back to the general issue, Dalton, allow me to underline this fact, is that even the WHO says there is no way of knowing where this virus is going. It's too early, and there is no virus.
How could it miss us, though? We're such a big country, many borders. We're a largest archipelago.
You mentioned this. Some people mentioned that this coronavirus is a black swan event, and I guess there's also another black swan event that until now, Indonesia has not had a confirmed case. So you mentioned about tourists, but the business side, because we have a lot of investments from China.
We're still hurting.
Business people will come and visit us, and now I think all investments are being put on hold. I think the impact to our economy, to jobs being created in the retail side, as well as tourism sectors, we need to brace for, I guess.
We haven't escaped the business impact, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we have not really.
The medical side, maybe.
The medical side,
we're getting hurt.
The global economy is already so fragile, so a lot of countries are experiencing huge hits
Already our
yeah.
hotels are reported
Yes.
cancellations and events are being canceled.
Big events are being canceled. Countries who have huge numbers of tourists from China, like Indonesia, Singapore, Japan, are really starting to suffer. And they say that this might happen for 2 quarters or even a year. You
Sure,
never
but
know.
globally, the number of cases are slowing down outside of China,
Yeah.
which means
Yes.
the experts say possibly it's peaked. So
Yeah.
let's hope that's the case.
And I would want to appeal to, I guess, all the netizens, social media. Make sure when you share something, it's valid, because there's a lot of
course.
hawks going around, including my dad was saying that, there's lockdown in Singapore. You should not visit Singapore. But then we check the source; it's not true.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And again, take care of your health, your
Yes.
immune system.
Starts with you, right? Okay. Still ahead, calls for a lockdown from us. This is a special edition of Hot Indonesia, tracking the threat of the coronavirus. By our March 27th show, we were calling for strict measures to contain the spread of COVID-19, but not everyone was. Status report. Now, we are midway through the government's advisory to stay and work from home, but the number of cases of COVID-19 continues to rise, not unexpectedly. While other countries have imposed strict lockdowns, including the latest, India with a 21-day order, Indonesia has yet to impose one. Now, I'm sure President Joko Widodo is considering a lockdown. He has to listen to advice. Now, businesses, as we know, are on their own, are closing down for the time being. Is what we are doing working? I again say we need a lockdown.
Yeah, I was looking at the number from the public transport department in Jakarta, whereby the number of travelers and commuters dropped from 1.1 million a day to now just under 200,000. So about 80% of people are basically adhering to the government decree for them to stay at home and
And it's
work
not
from
mandatory.
home.
Let's make it clear.
That's not mandatory,
yeah.
but more and more people now adhering, and the awareness is out there. But are we doing enough? The number of cases are increasing, and I was just receive a model that was sent by the public health faculty in University of Indonesia, as well as some statistics modeling that basically confirm that the peak of number of cases in Indonesia is projected to happen around end of April or early May. So that is basically in accordance with what the government has ordered, that the status of emergency status will be at least until the end of May.
So we got a lot more up curve.
There will be up curve, and I guess the government is now starting to force a stricter directions for the people to stay at home, doing social distancing. Some of the traditional marketplace is closing down. The wet market, some of them are reducing their operations, and I think people are generally more aware.
Yeah, people are doing it on their own already. The malls are closing down. No one's ordered anybody, but then why shouldn't it be mandatory?
The president said for the time being, the latest news that we've seen is that he's still underlining the fact that there will be no lockdown. It cannot be implemented that way in Indonesia.
Why not do we?
They're taking South Korea for an example. It's more suitable to be implemented here. But Dalton, I do agree that the government needs to be firm in this issue, because huge events, gatherings are still taking place. The Democratic Party had just recently had a huge gathering, 12th to 14th of March.
I was there at that hotel, actually. That night I saw them there.
With
yeah.
hundreds of people. And HIPME actually also had a recent gathering with
8th
hundreds
of March, yeah.
That was the young entrepreneurs, right?
And what you need to know is that, like, the region of Karawang was there in one of those meetings, and she was tested positive, and a lot of people were there.
why not from the top? The president say, let's do it before this curve gets even...
I think the president have indicated that they want the South Korea model of massive testing.
The difference is they did a lot of testing before so they didn't have to lock down. But we are not doing that kind of testing.
We're not doing it, but I think the test kits are arriving and we're doing more and more tests. I'm sure there are a lot of undetected cases. Some modeling specialists place it at around maybe 70,000 undetected cases already in Indonesia. So with that, you see the numbers will continue to increase because as more people get tested, you have more confirmed cases.
Okay, now we talked about medical supplies. You touched on that. You know, there was a report recently about theft of masks in West Java. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, people got to
But the
look out for...
distribution of the test kits also.
Yeah, so the government has to step up more on this. We're getting help, supplies from China. They had a plane load coming in, right? But there's got to be more national coordination again, to me, and make sure that people get what they need.
Yeah, and this is where the solidarity, the gotong royong, helping each other, really, which is the core value of being Indonesians, is being called about how you could help distributions of the protective gears, for instance. Now there's a calling for some of the people at the front line, the medical staffs, the medical, basically the medics who are making sure that more and more people are being treated is no longer getting the suitable protective gears, and they're doing it makeshift. I've seen people using plastic, and that's something that we need to put more effort and emphasis upon.
Sure, and we'll talk more about this later, but one last thing, you know, travel restrictions for those watching outside of this country. Now you will need a visa before you come here from your nearest Indonesian embassy or consulate, wherever you live. No more visa-free, visa on arrival programs, and you need to be healthy or expect to be quarantined.
And the governor here, at least from Jakarta, Governor Anies already issued also basically a 3 weeks no travel for people who are in the city to outside Jakarta, and for people from outside Jakarta.
That's what I mean. We're doing all these things piecemeal. The president should just say, hey, from the top, let's lock down 2 weeks, try to rid this thing, get the incubation period done, and move forward. But that's me. Okay. It is now July, and the number of infections continues to rise. I'm Dalton Taranaka in Jakarta. Thank you for watching, and please join us again next time.